Grand Rising. Beautiful, beautiful day as always. Wonderful to have Bill Metz here today. Thank you. How nice would it be to live with Bill and just have that playing in the background like all the time? It just like calms and soothes and feeds me. It's wonderful, wonderful. So thanks again. And the duet was a surprise, and that was also wonderful. So thank you too, Cassie. All right, so we'll start off by just saying happy 4th of July, happy Independence Day coming up this week. So always a nice celebration. And I also think, it's a good nod to us today to also declare our independence from the thoughts that we have that tell us we have to be the way that fits in with everybody, the things that tamp down that voice inside that the Rainbow Connection talked about, that voice that tells us who to be, who we are. It's always speaking to us for many, many years. We've heard that voice, and we've kind of, in order to fit in and not rock the boat, we've kind of like ignored that. But we're moving past that. We're creating a new way to be on this planet, and it's time to celebrate all the different things that make us uniquely who we are, because we are all absolutely essential. So each human being, we all have our own unique signature. No two people ever the same, ever. We all have our traits and our qualities, and just like the rainbow, if one part of that was missing, the picture's not complete. And while if something was missing, unless it was somebody in your direct orbit, you may not notice. But the thing itself, what I call God, but whatever you like to call it, the universe, spirit, the unified field, whatever we call it, it's got the perfect balance of infinite nature, and it needs every single one of us. And so that's what we're looking at this month of holy boldness. And that idea of the rainbow, I think it's a perfect explanation, because it's that broad spectrum. Yes, we have the Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. But in between it, they blend together. So it's not just 7 colors, it's infinite colors. And then the way that we can then pick and choose and mix and match and create all other colors that aren't represented in there. It's where we get the browns and the blacks and tans and lots of those colors. Just as important. I love the vibrant colors. I used to have a really good friend that made tie-dyes, t-shirts, and other stuff for a living. And he made really cool ones that he called a crunch, but it was always 2 colors. I always wanted the colorful one. Like, I want all the colors. Give me all the colors. Because it's just something about that fullness that really speaks to us. So each human being, this idea of the rainbow and the full spectrum, it applies at the individual level, and that applies at the collective. As above, so below, the micro to the macro. Spirit, it's the fractals. Everything is always represented. So every single individual, every aspect of spirit, in every aspect, not just the good, or what we label as good, but every aspect is within each and every one of us. And they say the sinner and the saint, all within. We all have that potential within us. And of course, it's here in this physical world where we have the labels like sinner and saint. But in the big picture that is spirit, that wants to express itself, it's just what is. So every human being, we have all of those qualities, and kind of the way that the colors blend together, the red into the yellow that forms the orange in the middle, we do that same thing within ourselves. We have the whisperings, the things that tells us, this is who you are. This is what your gift is to bring into this world. And so we have that. All of us have all of those qualities and traits, but we can look around and see the diversity of how some people accentuate and resonate with some qualities more than others, and vice versa. And that's how the world gets to express the infinite nature of the divine. And just that same way, every human being is like their own little shade of that color. But it's all very complex within that. So this week, really, the bulk of the talk this week is looking at a spiritual practice. And I think it's something that's kind of needed right now. It's a spiritual practice about healing that I'm going to get to in a minute. We've referenced it a lot, but it was perfect that it was in the global theme that CSL suggests as a conversation for this week, that we finally get to really go in depth. And it's a spiritual practice that I have seen it shift things in my own world, and I hope that you, if you haven't tried it before, I hope that this resonates with you. So again, just getting back to our uniqueness. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, there's a book called 365 Science of Mind, and it gives you something to think about each day of the year. Wonderful little things. So the one from this particular day says, we are all just a little unique, for each wears a different face, but behind each is the one presence, God, whatever you want to call it. Unity, this is one of my favorite lines right here. Unity does not mean uniformity. Unity means that everything draws its strength, its power, and its ability to live from one source. So you've heard me talk before about the idea if you could pull back far enough from the universe and just look, it's impossible to deny that there's only one. If you could pull outside of all that is, even if you believe in the multiverses, it's still just one thing. Unity. We are all part of the one thing. We are all in this together, whether we like it or not, here we are. But unity does not mean uniformity. When we talk about our oneness, there is no two people that are exactly the same. We can never stress that enough. And when we look at nature, it repeats. There's no two plants that are exactly the same. There's no two animals. There's no two rocks that are exactly the same. Everything. It's the infinite nature that is just so beyond anything that I can grasp. And that's what's inside each and every one of us. But when we ignore that voice, that song, Rainbow Connection was absolutely perfect. All the songs were perfect today. True Colors. When we ignore that because it makes somebody else uncomfortable, or we don't listen to it because we were taught, when we were being raised that it's not okay to be that. We tend to hide maybe who we are. And, it goes all the way back to like ancient tribal days, that one person stands out, it makes the other people nervous, and so they would exile you, which meant death. But we've evolved. We don't have to exile anymore. We can celebrate the diversity, celebrate the things that make us uniquely individual. We have that calling within us, and we feel it when we recognize we want to feel good. We want to love and be loved. We're social beings. We like being together with one another. So when we listen to what's within us, as we discover and create what's within us, and then celebrate others and encourage others to do the same, this world just keeps evolving and opening up like an amazing flower. That's what we're here to do. We're here to experience that calling that's within us and stop playing that fitting in thing. So all of us individuals, we're all different spectrums, different percentages of different qualities and traits. And one thing that I wanted to point out was this idea of like holy boldness. A lot of times in Centers for Spiritual Living, we have this tendency to kind of, especially the ministers, to kind of take what I see as the ideal and say that's the ideal for everybody. I have to remind myself, slap myself every now and then and just say, no. Because boldness, to me, that comes up and says, what are you going to do? You're going to be a rock star. Own it. Get out there and go big. Go big or go home. But that's not everybody wants that. That's not what everybody necessarily wants. We talk a lot about, your prosperity and your abundance, which is all well and good, but we also have to point out sometimes it doesn't mean just financial abundance. It means all kinds of abundances of experiences that are important to you. And to some people, financial matters aren't important. Money's not important to some people, but sometimes ministers, practitioners might have a tendency to say that should be important to you. I have a friend who is a larger person, a larger bodied person, and wonderful. And she owns it, and she loves who she is. She loves her body. It's perfect. She was told at one point by a minister that she would not be speaking from the pulpit because she didn't represent the principles of the ideal body. I mean, it's appalling that would be, to pick like one aspect and say this is what the ideal is and this is what everybody wants. Like, that's hogwash. We are so different. And whenever we see somebody expressing, somebody choosing to be more love, to be a positive presence in the world, how can we say no to that? I think we can feel it when we are either expressing expansion, expression of the one infinite divine. You can feel it because you open up and you just feel free. But when something is telling us, to like, that makes me uncomfortable, so I don't like it, that I'm doing something that makes that person uncomfortable, they don't like it. We've got this election coming up, and there's people saying things that make me very uncomfortable, and I don't like it. All of these things you can feel when you're opening up into more love or when you're closing down into more fear. And Centers for Spiritual Living, the Science of Mind, it's a philosophy about expansion, about inclusion, about uniqueness, of expressing your own unique qualities and traits. So maybe for you, boldness is to be still and to be quiet. I learned a new phrase recently. Have you all heard the phrase FOMO? The fear of missing out, FOMO. I learned a new one recently, and I was like, I kind of resonate with that. It's JOMO, the joy of missing out. It resonated. There's sometimes like, what's going on and who all is going to be there? And that sounds great, but you know what? I'm really looking forward to being in. I've got a book, and I'm going to be with my family, and I'm just going to miss out, and I'm going to feel joy with that. The holy boldness really means honoring who you are. Thinking about like the oracle at Delphi, where up above it says, know yourself, know thyself. Have you stopped and really listened to who you are? And stopped and explored, where am I not listening to that voice within? Where am I choosing uniformity instead of unity? Where am I choosing to fit in, adapting myself instead of expressing what I know wants to come out of me? So there's one other quote from Ernest Holmes that says, incarnated within each one of us is not only a divine spark, not only an incarnation of the living spirit of the cosmos, but a unique presentation of the cosmic whole. Everything that's ever existed, everything that ever will, every thought, every action, it's all within us in our own unique spectrum. Celebration is beautiful. So I will get into this spiritual practice because that's really what I wanted to kind of leave us with today, because it's a powerful practice. I'll start with our spiritual principle for the week, which is oneness. There is one infinite reality that exists in, through, and as all things. Oneness, however, is not sameness. The differences are what make us unique. And I forget, like the percentages, but how close we are to like a dog. Like our DNA is like still like 99%. To like a chimpanzee, it's like 0.1, like 0.1% or something different. But look how different that is, even though like genetically, very similar. So it's just this tiny thing that makes such a vast difference of differences. Kind of jumbling my words there. it's just amazing to me. And that's really just want to encourage us to always hold that space of respect for one another, respect for different ideas, and holding space for those that we disagree with. Because when we choose to wish that some people weren't part of our society or weren't part of this group or whatever, when we have these, again, I'm kind of going like with, just being in an election year, we have these ideas of people throw around the words evil and, that side, what they're doing is evil. It's a challenge. And I'm not trying to tell anyone how to think today, other than I want to encourage us all to recognize there, but for the grace of God, go I. And then choosing, like, who is it that I want to be? What are my true colors? Do I want to show up and create this resistance? Or do I want to speak up for what I believe in, and at that same time, remind myself that everybody is that divine spark of life, and so I won't condemn the person, but I could still speak, against, not so much against ideas, but more for ideas. What is it that I want to see? What is it that I want to stand in? So that's where our practice comes in. It is the Ho'oponopono prayer. So it comes up, I know I've referred to it a couple times, but just, kind of peripherally. And I've heard other people, I know that a lot of people in the community here speak about this, because they're like, oh, we should do Ho'oponopono. I'm like, yes. So all kinds of stuff around this one. There's a really amazing story where I heard about this. Is the story true? I don't know. There's a story about it, a psychologist, now I'm forgetting his name. Say that again? Hugh Len. Yes, thank you. Hawaiian psychologist in Hawaii, and this is it's a sacred prayer, one of their sacred spiritual practices, which right there, requires you to bring in a little bit of respect for it, because it's not my culture, so I'm talking about somebody else's culture. So I think that's important to recognize where this comes from, Native Hawaiian culture. But the story is that he was a psychologist, and he was working in a institution for the criminally insane or mentally ill, and it was a chaotic institution. And it was everywhere. It was not just the people that, I don't know if they were called inmates or patients or exactly how they were referred to. It wasn't just the chaos in there, the people that had done bad things with their mental health, criminal, illegal acts, but it was also in the staff. There was just this huge tension. And so he brought in something from the Hawaiian culture that he did to himself. And the reason why I love talking about it is because it's very similar to what we teach in the science of mind. If you are one that believes, this is where I'm going to get a little into the woo-woo, a little out there, but take it with a grain of salt, and there's always pragmatic sides to it. At least I think so. But the idea that everything that's out here is a projection of what's in here. How we see the world this is where it gets pragmatic. Like your attitude and your perception and the story you tell yourself certainly shapes the reality that we are part of. So whether you believe like it's a projection from you or not, you can see how your attitude is going to affect the world around you. This is the same concept. We teach that in the science of mind. Ho'oponopono is that same thing. You want to change the world, you change what's going on in here. And so what this doctor did is he did this Ho'oponopono practice, and he started with people on the faculty of this center. And one by one, he would go through and say this prayer 7, 8 times. He would hold it. Again, what we teach in the science of mind, when we talk about our affirmative prayer that we do, the important part is the feeling. Visualizing and knowing what it is that you're creating and feeling it as if, that you create a vibration that transmutes what's going on in the world. And whether it actually does, or whether it can be because it's not something I can prove and say, I prayed for this, I saw this, visualized it, and then it became. Anybody could say, well, that's coincidence. I don't care what they say, because I have faith, and I have enough experience of seeing that this stuff works to know. And the same thing is with the Ho'oponopono. He wasn't doing it to change anybody. He was doing it other than himself. He was doing it to change himself. And so the prayer it's 4 lines. And you picture who it is that you want to pray for, or you picture the situation that you want to pray for. And since it exists, whether you think you're in the wrong or not, and again, wrong is a duality term, right and wrong. In the grand picture, there just is. But beginning with whatever situation, since it exists, this is where I do some mental gymnastics. It exists, therefore I have a part in it, so it is within my consciousness, so it is mine to change. So I'm just going to start by apologizing for the situation. I've used this with relationships. One particular relationship where I was at my wit's end, didn't know what to do, so I tried it. And so I would just quiet myself and just sit, and I would just repeat it. It's like a mantra. And you repeat these 4 things over and over again. You just say, I'm sorry. And again, it's not to make you wrong. It's not to make you feel guilt. Just whatever has existed, whatever has happened, it's all part of our past, and guilt does nothing good for us. Holding grudges does nothing good for us. It only creates more of that dis-ease. So just beginning with, I am sorry. And then the second step is to say, please forgive me. Then the next step is to say, thank you. And then the final step is, I love you. I didn't use the capital L here, but love is a tough word for some people. Some people have a hard time saying, I love you, even to somebody they love, let alone saying it or thinking it about somebody that is an acquaintance. Well, I don't love them. That's weird. I couldn't do that. It's that love with a capital L. It is the force. It is the life force of the universe. It's so much bigger than just like the word God, it's the closest thing that describes it, but it doesn't. There is no word for it because it's ineffable. So that's the prayer. And now this is where, for the pragmatic for me, when I've used this in the past in my life, when I've had a challenging relationship situation and I just used this, because I was literally at my wit's end. I didn't know what else to do, and I'm like, I'm going to try the Ho'oponopono. I think that's part of the problem. Unless things get bad enough, I don't necessarily always remember to go to these practices. I'm getting better at it. But anyway, I did this, and whether it shifted anything in that other person or not, I can't say, but the situations shifted. So pragmatically, it could just simply be that I softened my energy. When they say that what you resist persists. So the more you push on something, the more it pushes back. And metaphysically, on the woo-woo side, is that true or not? I don't know, but I've experienced it. Resistance gets more resistance. And so anytime that I have tried this, and sometimes, it might take several times. It might take a couple days. But I have always felt relief of some sort. And if it doesn't bring the relief you're looking for, pay attention, because sometimes the relief comes in mysterious ways that maybe you wouldn't have expected. But things shift when we start to do our own spiritual practice, when we go within and we open up to something bigger than ourselves. So June, I'll say it one last time, happy Pride. I want to honor everybody to show up how they are. Love, compassion, kindness, appreciation. Seeking that connection with that thing within you that's deeper than you. That power greater than ourselves that we can use. Recognizing holy boldness is to show up how you feel called to show up and who you feel you are to be in this world. And as we do that, this is how we create this shift in consciousness in this world, as we do the catchphrase of Science or Centers for Spiritual Living of creating a world that works for everyone. So that's our task. So wherever you are, let's go within and just for a moment, is there a situation in your life that you would like to see differently or experience differently? Pick one that's not too triggering unless you want to go there. And just bring that situation or that person into your mind. And without making yourself wrong, just bringing in compassion and just say, I'm sorry, in your mind. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And recognizing yourself for all the times that you made life harder on yourself. Offer that to yourself. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. So I acknowledge that there is only one mind that is all thought, all consciousness. There's only one life force that breathes, creates, and animates all things. That same energy that flows through every single thing that's ever existed in this physical world as the physical body of that one consciousness. That we are all individual little cells in that organism called the universe. But we're all part of that one mind simultaneously. And we all get to discover, create, and express our own function within it, our own expression within it. And what comes up from the heart is always the experience that Spirit is asking us to provide and to be. So as we listen to our own callings and inklings and celebrate the unique expressions of those around us, recognizing that more love, more community, more compassion is the way to move forward into creating a new space. So I affirm and avow that anyone hearing these words is lifted up, surrounded, and blessed by that infinite light that they are. May that divine spark glow more and more brightly as we open up, as we say yes. And may we also honor and recognize all those on their own unique individual paths across this planet, expressing who and what they are, expressing their own unique combinations of the infinite spirit expression, knowing that no two paths are the same, and there is no wrong path, because they all lead to the same thing, of which we come from, of which we are in, of which we return, of which we are here to express and experience and be. It's all good. It's all God. And I release this, knowing that as I do, it unfolds in perfect, right timing. And if you're with me, join me by saying, and so it is. So it is. So thank you, everybody. Thank you.